and welcome to another episode of Cafe Biblos. We are currently continuing our study and in Mark chapter 1, and we're getting close to the end of chapter 1. We have maybe a couple more episodes to cover, but Eric's going to take over from here and just do a quick review of where we're at.
All right, so last we left off, Jesus is in Capernaum with Peter, Andrew, James, and John. It is on the Sabbath, and they were in a synagogue teaching, and they were confronted by a demon-possessed man. What did Jesus do, and why? After being confronted by a demon-possessed man, he told it to shut up.
He did. He just nipped it in the bud. Why did he make him shut up? You can remember what?
Maybe because he had a potty mouth.
No, demon didn't have a potty mouth, but I think the demon was trying to identify who Jesus was. And if my memory serves me correctly, which sometimes it does, Jesus did not want to be associated with any demons. I mean, he could cast out the demon. Remember, later on in the Gospel, we'll read where Jesus is accused of being in allegiance with Beelzebub because he casts out the devil, and he pretty much puts that away with his explanation. Jesus does not want to be identified as the Son of God, so he silences the demon. And we're going to see that later on in the same chapter. Go ahead, Eric.
All right, what was usually not tolerated regarding the Sabbath? That would be any form of work which included walking a certain distance and miracles, a practice that is not applied today, especially where I work.
Yeah, do you remember as a young boy, a lot of businesses were closed on Sunday. They had what we call a blue law. And as I got older, more businesses were open and we see that now all the time. We have businesses open all the time. Now, if you happen to go into Amish country, that's where we're kind of in the heart of Amish country. Go out there and try to go to a restaurant, which they do have good food, or go to a shop. You're going to hear crickets because they roll the streets up on Sunday and there's nothing there, and so they still practice that. But yeah, that was working on the Sabbath. Even rescuing an animal, traditional, could get you in some serious trouble with the Sanhedrin. What about walking?
Yeah, walking. Wow. Well, how long is a certain distance? Is it any distance, or just like if I walk from here to the kitchen?
You're good. They weren't allowed to walk. They had to do a Sabbath day's journey. And from what the book of Acts, chapter 1, verses 12 says, it was 2/3 of a mile.
That's not that bad.
But it also got to the point where, we're probably getting ahead of ourselves here, but there was a group, a sect called the Essenes, and I believe I mentioned that earlier. They would not even allow you to carry an infant or any loads whatsoever.
Infants got legs.
Yeah, up to a certain point they can use them, but then you can't. That means you couldn't pull the load either. So what do you let that baby do?
Just, if he wants to come, he'll go, I guess. Or just lay there.
Maybe so. Maybe so. So, Jesus' teaching was interesting in the synagogue because there were some things that he had done. What did they say about his teaching?
That it had authority.
Yeah. They were amazed. Now, if you read the Sermon on the Mount, when he gets near the end of the Sermon on the Mount, you'll see the same kind of wording as well with that, because this is a new teaching. He teaches with authority, not like the scribes. And we had mentioned that, I believe, in one of our previous lessons. And the thing about that, he says, he casted out the demons, so the people are saying that they listen to him. Even the demons obey him. And verse 27. So the teaching that the people were describing, they were very what? What word can we use to say that the people were? The people were amazed. That's it. Astonished, betwixt, baffled, bewildered. This is something new that they haven't seen. So, as this happened, now we had mentioned that. I'm taking this off my wrist edges. This happened. Capernaum wasn't very big. It was a fishing town, and the word about Jesus traveled very quickly. And so, this is going to come back and haunt Jesus a little bit later on. But his popularity grew, and it spread throughout Galilee. So, after the synagogue, Mark says in verse 28 of chapter 1, oh, wait a minute, is that what I want? No, in verse 29. In verse 28 it says, immediately the news about him spread everywhere into all the surrounding district of Galilee because of what happened in the synagogue. And in verse 29 it says, and immediately after they came out of the synagogue, they came into the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. So, what does immediately mean? How immediate is immediate? Is that
as quickly as possible?
As quickly as possible. Yeah. From what we can gather, and what some research that I did, Peter's house was about 84 feet south of the synagogue. And this is what people are telling the tourists, being told, in Capernaum. And according to Mark chapter 2, verse 1 and verse 3, chapter 3 and 20, the house becomes the base for Jesus' operations. So Peter's house becomes his base of operations for Jesus in Capernaum. So, who was living in this house? Who do you suppose would be living in this house? One, Peter, okay? And the scripture says in the house of Simon and Andrew, okay? So Simon and Andrew, with who? James and John. Were James and John living in this house? There was somebody else that was probably living in this house too, as we shall later see. Some speculate that at that time, the nuclear family was all present, including the extended family. So in this case it would be Simon and Andrew, their wives, and Peter's mother-in-law. Might even had, so you had 5 people living in this house. James and John were there as guests. So Jesus has left a public area, the synagogue, and now gone into a private home. What's the first thing that happens when he walks in the door? It says, now Simon's mother-in-law was lying sick with a fever, and immediately they spoke to Jesus about her. So as soon as Jesus walks in the door, hey, my mother-in-law is sick, can you check her out? Can you see if you can help her? And so Jesus does. That's what he does. I mean, so we use immediately quite a bit in this passage. The idea of a fever in the Greek is related to the word puer, P-U-R, which means fire. In Luke 4:38, remember Luke was a physician. He describes this as a high fever. Ancient physicians categorized fevers as either high or low. However, the fever was regarded as an independent disease and not a distress with which accompanied a variety of diseases or illnesses. We've come a long way in that area, because today it's a symptom associated with a variety of conditions, from cold, flu, and sometimes more serious illnesses, infection, and, well, we just got done with the coronavirus, so that was a symptom as well. Homes offered Jesus an opportunity for closer fellowship. In other words, in a crowd, you couldn't do a one-on-one teaching, but a home, he could answer questions, give them more instructions, and go from there. Crowds had a tendency, however, to gather where Jesus was, and we're going to see that here in a little bit. So Jesus was immediately informed of Simon's mother-in-law with a fever, as he entered the house. And what does he do? When he goes to Peter's mother-in-law, what does he do?
He touched her to perform the miracle to heal her. Why do you suppose Jesus used touch instead of just healing her from a distance? I mean, he didn't have to touch her. He didn't have to do anything. He could just blink his eye and it could have been done.
And a lot of the miracles that Jesus did, he used touch. And touch means a lot to God's creatures, even your pets. But for human beings, touch, in the practice of medicine and in caring for those who are ill, a touch does mean something. It could be comforting, reassurance. It can offer comfort. And so we see Jesus using this a lot in his miracles, even with lepers. He touches a leper and he heals him. Does that make Jesus unclean? That's a question we're going to have to research, because Jesus is not only divine, but he's also human. But in his divinity, he's the one that gave Moses the law, or he gave Moses the laws. And so it'd be interesting to find out when Jesus touches a leper, or even a dead body, because he did raise Jairus' daughter. Was he made unclean? Did he have to follow those rules? But anyway, we digress. Jesus rebukes the fever, but Jesus also came to her and raised her up by taking her hand. Now, how many of us have seen somebody and they've had a hard time trying to get up out of a chair or off a couch or off a bed, and we grab their hands and we help raise them up? Well, maybe this fever made her weak, but Jesus heals her of the fever. And let's see here. How soon after did Simon's mother-in-law start to serve them?
Immediately.
Immediately. Again, there's that word, immediately, which shows that the miracles that Jesus performed were instantaneous. In other words, they were completely healed. They didn't have to wait days or weeks. They were healed. Just like the snap of your finger or the blink of an eye.
They didn't need to take a miracle every 4 hours.
No.
Like a pill.
No, it's not like a pill. Yeah, take this 3 times a day.
3 times a day.
Yeah, so there was no further side effects. The pain, weakness, dizziness, all that was instantaneously gone. And so she began to wait on them and serve them. This miracle was performed, remember, in the private sector, whereas the casting out of the demon was in the public sector. while the previous one was in a public sector. The first the first miracle caused a commotion, remember, in the synagogue. This is amazing. Some were puzzled by it. However, in the private sector, it caused a calming. So, and since I did most of the talking
and I did most of the listening
for this episode, I'm going to let Eric tell you what is up next.
Next time on the Cafe Biblos. And then evening came. You can't stop the evening. It's coming.
It's coming.
Next time on Cafe Biblos.
So, thank you for watching and listening. And God bless you and have a great day. Bye now.